Cork. The thick bark of cork oak tree is a remarkable material. It's tough, elastic, buoyant, and fire-resistant, and suitable for a wide range of purposes. It has also been used for millennia. The ancient Egyptians sealed their sarcophagus stone coffins with cork, where the ancients, Greeks, and Romans used it for anything and from beehives to sundials. And the cork oak itself is an extraordinary tree. Its bark goes up to 20 centimeters in thickness, insulating the tree like a cork wrapped around the trunk and the branches and keeping the inside at a constant 20 degrees all year round. The fact must probably act a defense against the forest fires. The bark of the cork oak has a particular cellular structure with about 40 million cells per cubic centimeter. Thus, technology has never succeeded in replicating. The cells are filled with air, which is why cork is so buoyant. This also has an elastically that means you can squash it and watch it spring back to its original size and shape when you release the pressure. Cork oak grew in a number of Mediterranean countries, including in Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, and Morocco. They flourish in warm, sunny climates where there is a million of 400 millimeters of rain per year, and not more than 800 millimeters like grapevines. Their trees thrive in poor soil, put down deep roots in search of moisture and nutrients. Southern Portuguese region meets all of these requirements, which explains why, by the early 20th century, this region has become the world's largest producer of cork, and why today it accounts for roughly half of the all cork production around the world. Most of the cork forests are family-owned, and many of these family businesses, and indeed many of the trees themselves are around 200 years old. Cork production is above all an exercise in patience. From the planting of cork sampling into the first harvest takes 25 years, and a gap of approximately a decade must separate a harvest from cork. It's necessary to wait a further 15 or 20 years. You even have to wait for the right kind of summer day to harvest cork. The bark is stripped on a day when it's too cold or when the air is damp, and the tree will be damaged. Cork harvesting is a very specialized profession. No mechanical means of stripping cork bark has been invented, and so the job is done by teams of highly skilled workers. First, they make a vertical cut down on the bark using small sharp axes. Then lever it away in pieces as large as they can manage. The most skillful cork strippers process away a semi-cellular husk that runs the length of the trunk from just above ground level or to the first branches. It is then dried on the ground for about 4 months before being taken to factories where it is boiled to kill any insects that might remain in the cork. Over 6% of cork then goes on to be made into traditional bottle stoppers, with most of the remainder being used in the construction trade. Corkboard, and cork are ideal for thermal and acoustic insulation, where granules of cork are used in the manufacture of concrete. Recent years have seen the end of virtual monopoly of cork as the material for bottle stoppers due to concerns about the effects it may have on the contents of the bottle. This is caused by a chemical compound called 2,4,6 which forms through the interaction of plants, phenols, colorants, and malt. The tiniest concentrations are little as 3 or 4 parts of a trillion, can spoil the taste of the products contained in the bottle. The result has been a gradual yet steady move first towards plastic stoppers and more recently to aluminum in screw caps. This substitutes are cheaper to manufacture and, in the case of screw caps, more convenient for the user. The classic cork stopper does have several advantages. However, firstly, its traditional image is more in keeping with that of the type of high-quality goods with which it has long been associated. Secondly, and very importantly, cork is a sustainable product that can be recycled without difficulty. Moreover, cork forests are a resource which supports local biodiversity and it prevents desertification in the regions where they are planted. So, given the current concerns about environmental issues, the future of this ancient material once again look promising. Collecting must be one of the most varied of human activities, and is one that many of us psychologists find fascinating. Many forms of collecting have been defined with a technical name. Archaeophist collects teddy bears, philatelist collects postage stamps, and the Ielts collects postcards, amassing hundreds or even thousands of postcards, chocolates, rubbers, or whatever. It takes time, energy, and money that could surely be put to much more productive use. And yet there are millions of collectors around the world. Why do they do it? There are the people who collect because they want to make money. This could be called an instrumental reason for collecting. That is, collecting as their means to the end. If you look for the antiques that they can buy cheaply and expect to be able to sell at a profit, but there may be a psychological elements to buying cheap and selling dear can give the collector a sense of triumphing. And as selling online is so easy, more and more people are joining in. Many collectors collect to develop their social life, attending meetings of a group of collectors and exchange information on items. This is a variant on joining a bridge club or gym, and similarly brings them into contact with like-minded people. Another motive for collecting is the desire to find something special, or a particular example of the collection of collected items, such as the earlier recording by a particular singer. Some may spend their whole lives in a hunt for this. Psychologically, this can give a purpose to life that otherwise feels aimless. There is a danger, though, that is the individual is ever lucky enough to find what they are looking for. Rather than celebrating in their success, they may feel empty now. That's the goal. The goal that drove them on this has gone. If you think about collecting postage stamps, another potential reason for it, or perhaps a result of collecting, it is an educational value. Stamp collecting opens a window to other countries and to their plants, animals, or famous people show on their stamps. Similarly, in the 19th century, Many collectors amassed fossils, animals, and plants from around the globe, and their collections provided a vast amounts of information about the natural world. Without these collections, our understanding would be greatly inferior to what is in the past and nowadays. To a lesser extent, a popular form of collecting, particularly among boys and men, was transporting. In this must involve trying to see every locomotive of a particular type using published data that identifies each one, and the taking of each engine at its scene. In transporters exchange information these days, often by mobile phones, so they can work out where to go to see a particular engine as a byproduct. Many practitioners of the hobby become very knowledgeable about railway operations or the technical specifications of different engine types. Similarly, people who collect dolls may go beyond simple or enlarging in their collection and develop an interest in the way that dolls are made or the materials that are used. These have changed over the centuries from the wood that was standard in the 16th century Europe through the wax and porcelain of later centuries to the plastics of today's doll. All collectors must be inspired to study how dolls reflect nations was children-like or ought to be like. Not all collectors are interested in learning from the hobby, though. So what we might call a physical reason for collecting is the need for a sense of control, perhaps as a way of dealing with insecurity. Stamps collectors, for instance, arrange their stamps in albums, usually very neatly, organizing in their collection according to certain commonplace principles, perhaps by country in alphabetical order, or grouping stamps by what they depict people, birds, maps, and so on. One reason consciously or not, for what someone choose to collect is to show their character's individualism, and someone who decides to collect something as unexpected as the colors, for instance, may be conveying in their belief that they must be interested themselves. And believe it or not, there's at least one color museum in existence, and it grew out of a personal collection. Of course, all hobbies give pleasure, but the common factor in collecting is usually passion. Pleasure is far too madly. More than most other hobbies, collecting can be totally engrossing, and can give a strong sense of personal fulfillment. To non-collectors, it may appear eccentric, if harmless a way of spending time, but potentially collecting has a lot going for it. I would find an institution where any person can find instruction in any subject. This was their founder motto for college. Collar University, and it seems an apt characterization of their different university. Also in the USA, where I currently teach philosophy, students can prepare for a career in resource management, engineering, interior design, accounting, music, law enforcement, you name it. But what would the founders of these two institutions have thought of a course called Erasmus for Profit? I can not. What we have it on the books. Any undergraduate who have met the academic requirements can sign up for a course in our program in fire science. Naturally, the course is intended for perspective arousing investigators who can learn all the tricks of their trade for detecting whether a fire was deliberately set, discovering who did it, and establishing a chain of evidence for effective prosecution in the course of law. But wouldn't this also be the perfect cause for prospective arousalists to sign up for? And my point is not to criticize academic programs in fire science. They are highly welcome as part of the increasing professionalization of this and many other organizations. However, it's not unknown for a firefighter to torch a building. And this example suggests how dishonest and illegal behavior with the help of higher education can creep into every aspect of public and business life. I realized this anew when I was invited to speak before a class in marketing, which is another of the degree programs. The regular instructor is a college who appreciates the kind of ethical perspective I can bring in as a philosopher. There are endless ways I could have approached this assignment, but I took my cue from the title of their course, Principles of Marketing. It made me think to ask the students, is marketing principled? After all, a subject matter can have principled in the sense of being codified, having rules and with football or cheats, without being principled in the sense of being ethical. Many of the students immediately assumed that the answer to my question about marketing principles was obvious. No, just look at the ways in which everything under the sun has been marketed. Obviously, it need not be done in a principled, ethical fashion. And it's that obvious I made the suggestion, which may sound downright crazy in light of the evidence, thus perhaps making it by definition principled. My inspiration for this judgment is the philosopher who argued that an body of knowledge consists of an end or purpose and means. Let us apply both the terms means and end to marketing. The students have signed for a course in order to learn how to market effectively, but to what end? There seem to be two main attitudes towards that question. One, that the answer is obvious. The purpose of marketing is to sell things and to make money. The other attitude is that the purpose of marketing is irrelevant. Each person comes to the programs and course with his or her own plans, and this need not even concern their acquisition of marketing expertise as much. My proposal, which I believe would also be Kant's, is that neither of their attitudes captures the significance of the end to a means for marketing. A field of knowledge or a professional endeavor is defined by both the means and the end, and hence both deserve scrutiny. Students need to study both how to achieve X and also what X is. It is at this point that arousal for perfect becomes supremely irrelevant. In that course, is presumably about means how to detect or prosecute criminal activity. It is therefore assume that the end is good in the ethical sense. When I ask fire science, it studies to articulate the end or purpose of their field, they eventually generalize to something like the safety and welfare of society, which seems right as we have seen. Someone could use the very same knowledge of means to achieve a much less more noble end, such as personal profits via destructive, dangerous, reckless activity, but we would not call that fighting. We have a separate word phrase, arousing. Similarly, if you employed the principle of marketing in an unprincipled way, you would not be doing marketing. We have another term for it, fraud. Keynes gives the example of a doctor and a poisoner who use identical knowledge to achieve their divergent ends. We would say that one is practicing medicine, the other murder. Two things distinguish food production from all other productive activities. The first, every single person needs food each day and has a right to it. And the second is hugely dependent on nature. These two unique aspects, one political, the other nature, make food production highly valuable and different from any other business. At the same time, cultural values are highly entrenched in food and agricultural systems worldwide. Farmers everywhere face major risks, including extreme weather, long-term climate change, and price volatility in inputs and products makers. However, some holder frames in developing countries must in addition deal with adverse environment and both nature in terms of soil quality, rainfall, etc., and human in terms of infrastructure, financial systems, markets, knowledge, and technology. Counterintuitively, hunger is prevalent among many smallholder farmers in the developing world. Participants in the online debates argue that our biggest challenge is to address the underlying causes of the agricultural system's inability to ensure sufficient food for all, and they identified as derivers of this problem over dependency on fossil fuels and supportive government policies. On the question of mitigating the risks farmers face, most ethicists called for greater state intervention. In his essay, President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development argued that governments can significantly reduce risk for farmers by providing basic services like roads to get produce more efficiently into markets, or water and food storage facilities to reduce losses. Sophia Murphy is senior advisor to the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, suggested that the procurement and holding of stocks by governments can also help mitigate wider swings in food prices by alleviating the uncertainties about market supply. Xinjin Feng, Director General of the International Food Policy Research Institute, helped up social safety nets in public welfare programs in Brazil and Mexico as valuable ways to address poverty among families and reduce their vulnerability to agricultural shocks. However, some commentators responded that cash transfers to poor families do not necessarily translate into increased food security, as these programs do not always strengthen food production or raise incomes. Regarding these subsidies for agriculture, Rocky Akiba, Executive Director of Bangladesh, Shanghai, commented in her essay that these have not compensated for the stranger halt. Strange halt is exercised by private traders. In fact, studies show that 60% of beneficiaries of subsidies are not poor, but rich landholders and non-farmer traders. Murphy and Fanning argued that private risk management tools like private insurance, commodity futures markets, and rural finance can help small-scale producers mitigate risk and allow for investment improvement. The warrant that financial support schemes often encourage the adoption of high-input agriculture practices, which in the medium term may raise production costs beyond the value of the harvest. Murphy noted that when future markets become excessively financialized, they can contribute to short-term price volatility, which increases farmers' food insecurity. Many participants and commentators emphasize that greater transparency in markets is needed to mitigate the impacts of volatility and make evidence of whether adequate stocks and supplies are available. Others contended that agribusiness companies should be held responsible for paying for negative side effects. Many essays mentioned climate change and its consequences for small-scale agriculture. Fan explained that in addition to reducing crop yields, climate change increases the magnitude and the frequency of extreme weather events, which increase smallholder vulnerability in the growing unpredictability of weather patterns, increase the farmers' difficulty in managing weather-related risks. According to this author, one solution would be to develop crop varieties that are more resilient to new climate trends and extreme weather patterns. Accordingly, Paul Molly, co-founder and executive director of the ETC Group, suggested that if we are to survive climate change, we must adapt policies that less peasant and diversity in the plants and animal species and variants breeds that make up over millions. Some participating authors and commentators argued in favor of community-based and autonomous risk management strategies through collective action groups, cooperatives, or producers groups. Such groups enhance market opportunities for small-scale producers, reduce marketing costs, and synchronize buying and selling with seasonal price conditions. According to Murphy, collective action offers an important way of farmers to strengthen their political and economic bargaining power and to reduce their business risks. One commentator, John Tan, warned that collective action does not come as a free good. It takes time, efforts, and money to organize, build trust, and to experiment. Others, like Michael, suggested that in order to apply what I already know, all stakeholders, including indigenous governments, scientists, and civil society, must work together. Start at the beginning of the value chain. Some participants explained that market price volatility is often worsened by the presence of intermediary purchase who taking advantage of farmers' vulnerability dictates prices. When competitors suggested farmers can gain greater control over price and minimize price volatility by selling directly to consumers. Similarly, some ambitious founder and advisor to the Institutes of Research and Education, India, wrote that community supported agriculture where consumers invest in local farmers by subscribing and guarantee producers a fair price is a risk-sharing model worth more attention. Direct food distribution systems not only encourage small-scale agriculture but also give consumers more control over the food they consume, she wrote. When the U.S. explorer and academic Herman Bingham arrived in South America in 1911, he was ready for what was to be the greatest achievement of his life, the exploration of the remote hinterland to the west of Castile, the old capital of the Inca Empire in the Andes Mountains of Peru. His goal was to locate the remains of a city called Ielts, the latest capital of the Inca civilization. Cusco lies on a high plateau, the elevation of more than 3,000 meters. Bingham plan was to descend from this plateau along the valley of the Umbrella River, which takes circuitous routes down to the Amazon and passes through an area of dramatic canals and mountain ranges. When Bingham and his team set off down in late July, they had an advantage over travelers who had preceded them. A track had recently been embarked down the valley canal to enable rubber to be brought up by mullets from the jungle. Almost all previous travelers had left the river and taken a high pass across the mountains to join in the river lower down, thereby cutting a substantial color, but also therefore never passing through the area around on 24 July, and they were a few days into their descent of the valley, and their day began slowly, with Bingham trying to arrange sufficient modes for the next stage of the trek. His companion showed no interest in accompanying him up the nearby hill to see some ruins that a local farmer had told them about the night before. The morning was dark and damp, and Bingham also seemed to have been less than keen on the prospects of climbing the hill. In his book Lost City of Incas, he relates that and he made the essence without having the latest expectation that he would find anything at the top. Bingham writes about the approach in vivid styles in his book. First, as he climbed up the hill, he describes the ever-present possibility of deadly snakes, and capable of making considerable spring when in pursuit of their prey. Not that he sees any. Then there's a sense of mountain in discovery as he comes across great slabs of the terrace, and then a monsoon followed by a monumental staircases, and finally the grand ceremonial buildings of Peru. You seemed like an unbelievable dream. The satire meets their bound, he wrote. We should remember, however, the lost city of the Incas, the work of hindsight, not written into 1948, many years after his journey entries the table review or a much more gradual appreciation of his achievements. He spends the afternoon at the ruins, nothing down the dimensions of some of the buildings. The descendant and rejoined his companions, until whom he seems to have said little about his discovery. At this stage, the inhabitants realized the extent or the importance of the sites, nor did he realize what use he could make of the discovery. However, soon after returning, it occurred to him that it could make a name for himself from this discovery. When he came to write the National Geographic magazine article that spoke the story of the world in April 1913, he knew he had to produce a big idea. He wondered whether it could have been the birthplace of the very first Inca among the Greeks, and whether it could also have been was chronicles described as the last city of the Incas. This term referred to the settlement where the Incas had fled from Spanish invaders in the 1530s. Behan made desperate attempts to prove this belief for nearly 40 years, settling his version of these sites as both the beginning and end of the Inca civilization were a magnificent one and inaccurate. We now knew that actually not 65 kilometers away in the depths of the jungle. One question that has perplexed visitors, historians, and archaeologists alike ever since the began is why the sites seem to have been abandoned before the Spanish conquest. There are no reference to it by any of the Spanish chronicles, and if they had known of its existence so close to close, they would certainly have come in search of gold and deer, which have gained a wide acceptance over the past few years. Thus, Picu was a Maya country estate built by an Inca emperor to escape the cold winters of Cusco, where the elite could enjoy monumental architecture and a spectacular view. Furthermore, the particular architecture of suggests that it was constructed at the time of the greatest of all the Incas. The Emperor Bacasam descendants built other similar estates for their own use, and so would have been abandoned after his death some 50 years before the Spanish conquest. According to our latest figures, the majority of the world population is now bilingual or multilingual, or have grown up speaking two or more languages. In the past, such children were considered to be as disadvantaged. Compared with their monolingual parents. Over the past few decades, however, technological advances have allowed the researchers to look more deeply at the bilingualism interacts with and changes their cognitive and neurologic systems, thereby identifying several clear benefits of being bilingual. Research shows that when a bilingual person uses one language, the other is active at the same time. When we heard a word, we don't hear the entire word at all, words all at once. Their sounds arrive in sequential order long before the word is finished. The brain's language system begins to guess it. It was that your word must be. If you heard can, you will likely active it. In words like candy and candle as well, at least during the earlier stages of For bilingual people, this kind of activation is not limited to the single language. Auditory inputs activities corresponding in words regardless of the language to which they belong. And some of the most compelling evidence for this phenomenon, called language activation, comes from studying eye movements. A Russian English bilingual asked to pick up a marker from a set of objects would look more at a stamp than someone who doesn't know Russian, and because the Russian word for stamp marker sounds like the English word he or she heard. Marker in cases like this, language activation occurs because when the listener hears the map onto words in another language, having to deal with this present linguistic competition can result in difficulties. However, for instance, knowing more than one language can cause speaker to name pictures more slowly, and can increase the tip of the tongue states. And when you can almost but not quite bring a word to mind, as a result, the constant judging of two languages creates a lead to control how much a person accesses a language at any given time. And for this reason, bilingual people often perform better on tasks that require conflict management in the classical stroke task. People see a word and ask to name the color of their word's font. When the color and the word match, for example, the word red printed in red, people correctly name the color more quickly than when the color and the word don't match. For example, the word red printed in blue, it occurs because the word itself red and its found color blue conflict. Bilingual people often excel as tasks such as this, which tap into their ability to ignore competing and perceptual information and focus on the relevant aspects of the inputs. Bilinguals are also better at switching between two tasks. For example, when bilinguals have to switch from characterizing objects by color, red or green, to characterize them by shape, circles, or triangle, or they do so more quickly than monolingual people, reflecting better cognitive control when having to make rapid changes of strategy. It also seems that the neurologic roots of the bilingual advantage extended to brain in areas more traditionally associated with sensory processing. When monolingual and bilingual adolescents listen to simple or switch sounds without any intervening background noise, they show highly similar brain and stem responses. So when researchers play the same sound to both groups in the presence of background noise, however, the bilingual listener's neural response is considerably larger, reflecting a better encoding of their sounds, fundamental frequency, and a feature of sound closely related to pitch perception, and such improvements in cognitive and sensory processing may help a bilingual person to process information in their environment and help explain why bilingual adults acquire a third language better than monolingual adults master a second language. This advantage may be rooted in the skill of focusing on information about the new language while reducing interference from the language they already know. Research also indicates that bilingual experience may help to keep the cognitive mechanisms sharp by recruiting alternative brain networks to compensate. For those that become damaged during again, older bilinguals enjoy improved memory relative to monolingual people, which can lead to real-world health benefits. In a study of over 200 patients with a disease or degenerative brain disease, bilingual patients reported showing initial symptoms of the disease on an average of 5 years later than monolingual patients. In the following up study, researchers compared the brains of bilingual and monolingual patients matched on their severity, compared severity of symptoms. Surprisingly, the bilingual brains have more physical signs of disease than their monolingual counterparts, even though their outward behavior and abilities were the same. If their brain is an engine, bilingualism may help it to go further on the same amounts of field. Furthermore, the benefits associated with bilingual experience seem to start very early. In one study, researchers taught 7-month-old babies growing up in monolingual for bilingual homes. That's when they heard tinkling sound parties appeared on one side of a screen. Halfway through the study, the parties began appearing on the opposite side of the screen. In order to get a reward, the infants had to adjust the route they learned. Only the bilingual babies were able to successfully learn the new rule. This suggests that for very young children, as well as for older people, navigating a monolingual environment imparts an advantage that's transfer for beyond the language. Forests of Stanley County cover much of the uneven lava plains that separate the interior of the island from the Pacific Ocean. With its 5 distinct volcanoes, the island resembles a nuclear landscapes, owning the thick vegetation at the skirts of the often cloud-covered peak of Sierra Nigeria offers respite from the burgeoning terrain below. This hospitable environment is home to the giants in tortoise. Sometime after their birth, around 5 million years ago, the islands were colonized by one or more tortoises from mainland to South America. As these ancestral tortoises settled on the individual islands, the different populations adapted to their unique environments, giving rise to at least 14 different subspecies. Island life agreed with them. In the absence of significant predators, they grew to become the largest and longest living tortoise on their planet, weighing more than 400 kilograms, occasionally exceeding 1.8 meters in length, and living for more than a century. Before human arrival, the archipelagos tortoises numbered in the hundreds of thousands. From the 17th century onwards, pirates took a few on board for food, but the arrival of whaling ships in the 1790s saw this exploitation exploitationally relatively mobile and capable of surviving for months without food or water. The turtles were taken on board these ships to act as food supplies. During long ocean passages, sometimes their bodies were processed into high-grade oil. In total, an estimated 200,000 animals were taken from the archipelago before the 20th century. This historical exploitation was then exacerbated when settlers came to the island. They hunted the turtles and destroyed their habitats to clear land for agriculture. They also introduced alien species ranging from cattle, pigs, goats, rats, and dogs to plants and ants. They thus either prey on the eggs and the young turtles or damage or destroy their habitats. Today, only 11 of the original subspecies survive, and of course, as the end of this, several and highly endangered. In 1989, work began on the turtles breeding center just outside the town of Perchu, dedicated to protecting the island's turtles population. The center's captive breeding program proved to be extremely successful, and it eventually had to deal with an overpopulation problem. And the problem was also a pricing one, and captive bred turtles can't be reintroduced into the wild until they are at least 5 years old and weigh at least 4.5 kilograms. At which point their size and weight and their hardened shells are sufficient to protect them from predators. If people wait too long after that point, the turtles eventually become too large to transport. For years, arbitration efforts were carried out in small numbers, with the turtles carried on the backs of men over weeks long treacherous hedges among narrow trails. But in November 2010, the environmentalist and National Park license officers Merlin Godfrey Merlin visiting a private motor yacht. Captain and helicopter pilots gathered around a table in a small cafe on the island of to work out some more ambitious reintroduction. And the aim was to use a helicopter to move 300 of their breeding centers to various locations close to southern Nigeria. This unprecedented efforts were made possible by the owners of the 34-meter Ielts White Cloud, who provided the national park with free use of their helicopter and its experienced pilot, as well as the logistical support of the yachts, its captain and crew, originally an air ambulance. The yacht's helicopter had a rear double door and a large internal space that was suited for cargo. Also, custom crates were designed to hold up to 33 turtles with a total weight of about 150 kilograms. This weight, together with that of a few pilots and four crew, approached their helicopter's maximum and payload, and there were times when it was clearly right on the edge of the helicopter's capacities. During the period of the 3 days, a group of volunteers from the breeding center worked around the clock to prepare the young turtles for transport. Meanwhile, park wardens dropped off ahead over time in remote locations, cleared island sites in the thick brush, cutting and lava rocks. After their release, the July turtles quickly spread out over their ancestral territory, investigating their new surroundings and feeding on their vegetation. Eventually, when tiny turtles came across a fully grown giant who had been lumbering around the island for around 100 years. The two stood side by side, a powerful symbol of their regeneration of an ancient species. While many diseases that affect humans have been eradicated due to improvements in vaccinations and availability of healthcare, there are still areas around the world where certain health issues are more prevalent in a world that is far more globalized than ever before. People come into contact with one another through travel and living closer and closer to each one. As a result, supervirus and other infectious resistance to antibiotics are becoming more and more common. Geography can often play a very large role in the health concerns of certain populations. For instance, depending on where you live, you will not have the same health concerns as someone who lives in a different geographical region. Perhaps one of the most obvious examples of this idea is malaria prolongarius, which are usually tropical regions that foster a warm and damp environment in which the mosquitoes that can give people this disease can grow. Malaria is much less of a problem of high altitude deserts. For instance, in some countries, geographical factors influence the health and well-being of the population in very obvious ways. In many cities, the wind is not strong enough to clear the air of the massive amounts of smog and pollution that causes asthma, lung problems, SIS issues, and more in the people who live there. Part of the problem is, of course, the massive number of cars being driven. In addition to factories that run on coal power, the rapid industrialization of some countries in recent years has also led to the cutting down of forests to allow for the expansion of big cities, which makes it even harder to fight the pollution with the fresh air that is produced by plants. It is situations like this that the field of health geography comes into its own. It is an increasingly important area of study in a world where diseases like polio are emerging. Respiratory diseases continue to spread, and the malaria prolonged areas are still fighting to find a better cure. As geography is the combination of, on one hand, knowledge regarding geography and the methods used to analyze and interpret the geographical information, and on the other, the study of health, disease, and healthcare practices around the world. The aim of this hybrid science is to provide solutions for common geography-based health problems, where people will always be prone to illness. The study of how geography affects our health will lead to the eradication of certain illnesses and their prevention of others in the future. By understanding why and how we get sick, we can change the way we treat illness and diseases specific to certain geographical locations. The geography of disease and your health analyze the frequency with which certain diseases appear in different parts of the world and overlays the data with the geography of the region and to see if there could be a correlation between the two. Health geographies also study factors that could make certain individuals or population more likely to be taken ill with a specific health concern or disease as compared with the population of another area. As geographers in this field, they are usually trained as healthcare workers and have an understanding of basic epidemiology as it relates to the spread of diseases among the population. Researchers study the interactions between humans and their environment that could lead to illness, such as asthma, in place with high levels of pollution and work to create a clear way of categorizing illnesses, diseases, and epidemics into local and global scales. Health geographies can map the separate spread of illnesses and attempts to identify the reasons behind an increase and a decrease in illnesses, as they work to find a way to halt the further spread or emergence. of diseases in vulnerable populations. The second subcategory of health geography is the geography of healthcare provision. This group studies the availability or lack thereof of health care resources to individuals and populations around the world. In both developed and developing nations, there is often a very large discrepancy between the options available to people in different social classes, income brackets, and levels of education. Individuals working in the area of the geography of healthcare provision attempt to assess the levels of healthcare in the area. For instance, it may be very difficult for people to get medical attention because there is a mountain and train in their village and the nearest hospital. These researchers are on the front line of making these recommendations regarding policy to international organizations, local governments, bodies, and others. The field of health geography is often overlooked, but it constitutes a huge area of lead in the field of geography and healthcare. If we can understand how geography affects our health, and no matter where in the world we are located, we can better treat disease, prevent illness, and keep people safe and well. What does music make us feel? On the one hand, music is a purely abstract art form, devoid of language or explicit ideas, and yet even though music says little, it still manages to touch us deeply. When listening to our favorite songs, our body betrays all their symptoms of emotional arousal, the bubbles in our eyes, the delight, our pulse and the blood pressure rise, the electrical conductance of our skin is lowered, and the cerebellum, our brain region associated with bodily movements becomes strangely active. Blood is even redirected to the muscles in our legs. In other words, sound stares us as our biological roots. A recent paper in Nature by neuroscience by research teams in Montreal, Canada, makes an important step in revealing the process and the themes of the potent placebo stimulus that is music, although the study involves plans of fancy technology, including functional magnetic resonance imaging and lineage-based positron emission tomography scanning. The experiments itself was rather straightforward. After screening 213 individuals who responded to advertisements requesting people who experience chills to instrumental music, the scientists narrowed down their subjects pool to 10, and then asked the subjects to bring in their playlist of favorite songs. Virtually every genre was represented, from techno to tango, and played them their music where their brain activity was monitored. Because the scientists were combining early methodology, they were able to obtain an impressively exact and detailed portrayal of music in their brain. The first thing they discovered is that music triggers the protection of the dopamine, a chemical with a key role in setting people's moods by the neurons nerve cells in both the dorsal and the ventral regions of the brain, and these two regions have long been linked with the experience of pleasure. This finding isn't particularly surprising. What is rather more significant is the finding that the dopamine neurons in the caudate region of the brain involved in namely stimulus responses, associations, and anticipating food and other reward stimuli, were at their most active around 15 seconds before the participants' favorite moments in the music, and the researchers call this the anticipatory phase and argue that the purpose of this activity is to help us predict the arrival of our favorite parts. The question, of course, is what are these the dopamine neurons are up to, or why are they so active in the period preceding the acoustic climax? After all, we typically associate surges of dopamine with pleasure with the preceding of the actual rewards, and yet this cluster of cells is mostly active when the chills have yet to arrive, when the melodic pattern is still unresolved. One way to answer the question is to look at the music and note the neurons, where music can often seem at least to the outsider like a labyrinth of intricate patterns. It turns out that the most important part of every song of symphony is when the patterns break down, when the sound become unpredictable. Its music is too obvious. It is annoying and boring, like an alarm clock. Numerous studies, after all, have demonstrated that the brain's neurons quickly adapt to predictable rewards. If we knew what's going to happen next, then we don't get excited. This is why composers often introduce keynotes in the beginning of a song, spend most of the rest of the piece in the studios, avoidance of the pattern, and finally repeat it only at the end. The longer we are denied the pattern we expected, the greater the emotional release when the pattern returns, safe and sound. To demonstrate this psychological principle, the musicologist Leonard May, in his classical book Emotion and the Meaning in Music, analyzed the fifth movement of Beethoven in the stream C-sharp major 131. Miller wanted to show how music is delight is defined by the flouritation with, but not submission to, over expectations of order. Where dissected 50 merits bar of the masterpiece, showing how Beethoven begins with the clear statements of rhythmic and harmonic pattern, and then in ingenious dance carefully holds off repeating it. And once again, often does instead it suggests variations of the pattern. He wants to preserve an element of uncertainty in his music, making our brains beg for their one chord he refused to give us. Beethoven says that chord for the end. According to Mayer, it is the suspenseful tension of music arising out of over unfulfilled expectations that is the score of the music feeling, while earlier theories of music focus on the way a sound can refer to the real world of image and experiences its cumulative meaning. Mayer argued that the emotions we find in music come from the unfolding events of the music itself. This embodied meaning arises for the patterns the symbolic involves and then eulogs. It is this uncertainty that triggered the search of diplomacy in the candidate as we struggle to figure out what will happen next. We can't predict some of these notes, but we can't predict them all, and that is what keeps us listening, waiting expectancy for a reward for the pattern to be completed. From our earlier origins, man has been making use of glass. Historians have discovered that a type of natural glass obsidian formed in places such as the mouth of a volcano as a result of the intense heat of an eruption melting sand. It was first used as tips for spears. Archaeologists have even found evidence of man-made glass which dates back to 4000 BC. This took the form of glaziers used for coating stone beads. It was not until 1500 BC, however, that the first hollow glass container was made by converting a sand core with a layer of molten glass. Glass blowing became the most common way to make glass containers from the 1st century BC. The glass made during this time was highly colored due to the impurities of the raw materials. In the 1st century AD, methods of creating colorless glass were developed, which was then tainted by the addition of coloring materials. The secrets of glass making were taken across Europe by the Romans during this century. However, they guarded the skill and the technology required to make glass very closely, and it was not until their empire collapsed in 476 AD that glass making's knowledge became widespread throughout Europe and the Middle East. From the 10th century onwards, the Valentines gained a reputation for technical skill and artistic ability in the making of glass bottles, and many artists craftsmen left Italy to set up glass works throughout Europe. A major milestone in the history of glass occurred with the invention of lead crystal glass by the English glass manufacturer George Relentlessly attempts to counter the effects of clouding that sometimes occurred in blown glass by introducing lead to the raw materials used in the process. The new glass he created was softer and easier to decorate and had a higher refractive index, adding to its brilliance and beauty, and is provide invaluable to the optical industry. It is thanks to Ravenscroft invention that optical lenses, astronomical telescopes, microscopes, and the like become possible. In Britain, the modern glass industry only really started to develop after the repeal of the Excise Act in 1845. Before that time, heavy taxes have been placed on the amount of glass melted in the glass house and were lifted continuously from 1745 to 1845. Joseph Palace Crystal places at London's Great Exhibition of 1851 marked the beginning of glass as a material used in the building industry. This revolutionary new building encouraged the use of glass in public, domestic, and horticultural architecture. Glass manufacturing techniques also improved with the advancements of science and the development of better technology. From 1887 onwards, glass making developed developed from traditional mouth blowing to the semi-automatic process. After factory owner H.M. Elshey introduced a machine capable of producing 200 bottles per hour in Castleford, Yorkshire, England, more than 3 times quicker than any previous production method. Then in 1987, the first fully automated machine was developed in the USA by Michael Owen, founder of the owner the bottle machine company. This is a major manufacturer owners and installed in its factory on the invention. Its invention could produce an impressive 2,500 bottles per hour, and other developments followed rapidly, but it was not until the First World War when Britain became cut off from essential glass suppliers. That glass became part of the scientific sector. Prior to this, glass had been seen as crafts rather than a precious science. Precious. Today, glassmaking is a big business. It has become a modern high-tech industry operation in a fiercely competitive global market. Our quality, design, and service levels are critical to maintaining market share. Modern glass plants are capable of making millions of glass containers a day in many different colors, with green, and brown, and clear remaining the most popular. A few of us can imagine modern life without glass. It features in almost every aspect of our lives, in our homes, our cars, and wherever we sit down to eat or drink. Glass packaging is used for many products, many beverages, and sold in glass, so as numerous food science, as well as medicines and cosmetics. Glass is an ideal material for recycling, and with growing consumer concern for growing issues, glass bottles and jars are becoming ever more popular. Glass recycling is good use for the environment. It saves used glass containers being sent to a landfill at less engine. It is needed to mass recycle glass than to melt down raw material. This also saves fuel and production costs. Recycling also reduces the need for raw materials to be quarried, thus saving precious resources. There is a poem written around 596 AD, which described hunting mysterious animals called a lion, but what is nothing seemed to fit. Until 2006, when an animal bone dating from around the same period was found in the Kingsley Cave in northern England. Until this discovery, the lynx, the largest spotted cats with tossed ears, was presumed to have died out in Britain at least 6,000 years ago, before the inhabitants of these islands took up farming. But the 2006 find, together with three other Yorkshire and Scotland, is compelling evidence that the lynx and the mysterious lion was in fact one and the same animal. If this is so, it will bring forward the castle year cast estimated extinction dates back roughly 5,000 years. However, this is not quite the last glimpse of the animal in Britain. In British culture, 9th century stone cross from east of egg shoots alongside the deer, boar, and archers perched by a mountain hunter, speckled cats with tousled ears were north for the animal's backside, having worn away with time, and we could have been certain as the lake's starboard tail is unmistakable. mistakable. But even without this key feature, it's hard to see what else the creature could have been. The next is now becoming the totemic animal of the moments that is transforming a British environmentalist remodeling. Remodeling means the mass restoration of damaged ecosystems. This involves letting trees return to places that have been denuded, allowing parts of the seabed to recover from trawling and dredging, permitting rivers to flow freely again. Above all, this means bringing back missing species. One of the most striking insights of modern ecology is that ecosystem without large predators behave in completely different ways for those that retain them. Some of them drive dynamic processes that resonate through the whole food chain, creating niches for hundreds of species that might otherwise struggle to survive. The killer turn out to be brainers of life. Such findings present a big challenge into British conservation, which has often cited arbitrary assemblages of plants and animals and source as great efforts and expense to prevent them from changing. It has tried to preserve the living worlds as if it were a jar of pickles, letting nothing in and nothing out, keeping nature in a state of rest. Developments as ecosystems are not merely collections of species, they are also the dynamic and ever-shifting relationships between them, and this dynamics often depends on large predators as the potential is even greater by protecting in large areas. So from commercial fishing, we could once more see what 18th century literature describes what shows fish being chased by fin and sperm whales within sight of the English shore. This policy will also greatly boost the catches in the surrounding seas. The fishing industry is insistent on scrolling every inch of seabed, leaving new breeding reserves that will not be more damaging to its own interest. Remodeling is a real example of an environmental movement in which campaigners articulate what they are for rather than only what they are against. One of the reasons why their enthusiasm for remodeling is spreading so quickly in Britain is that it helps to create a more inspiring vision than the growing moments usually improvise follow us, and the world will be steadily less awful than it would otherwise have been. The next presents no threats to human beings. There's no known instance of one pair preying on people. It is the specialist predator for deer species that has been exploited in Britain in recent decades, holding back by intensive and embossing attempts to re-establish forests. It will also winkle the sea deer, an exotic species that is almost impossible for human being to control at its height in impenetrable plantations of young trees. The attempts to reintroduce this particular marriage well with their aim of bringing forest back to parts of bare and barren uplands. The next requires deep cover, and as such presents later rates to sheep and other livestock, which are supposed as the condition of farm subsides to be kept out of the woods. On the recent trip to the Caroline Mountains, I heard several conservationists suggest that the lakes could be reintroduced there within 20 years if trees return to their bare hill elsewhere in Britain. Their big case could soon follow. There is nothing extraordinary about these proposals as seen from the perspective of anywhere else in Europe. The Nix has not been introduced to the Jura Mountains, the Alps Vosges in eastern France, and the Harz Mountains in Germany, and has re-established itself in many more places. The European population had tripled since 1970 to roughly 10,000, as with wolf, bears, beavs, boars, bison, moose, and many other species. The Nix has been able to spread as farming has next the hill, and people discover that it's more lucrative to products charismatic wildlife than to hunt it, as tourists will pay for their chance to see it. Scary wildlife is happening almost everywhere except Britain. Here, attitudes are just beginning to change. Conservationists are starting to accept that their old preservation model is falling, even on its own terms. Already, projects such as Trees for Life in the Highlands provide a hint of what must be coming, and our organization is being set up that they will seek their catalysts in the wildland of land and sea across Britain. It's aiming to reintroduce the rest of species to British ecosystem. Hope. After a number of serious failures or guidelines, that is how they mentioned at their highest level. Companies in Britain as well as elsewhere should consider radical changes to their directors' rules. It is clear that the role of a board director today is not an easy one following the 2008 financial meltdown, which resulted in a deeper and more prolonged period of economic downturn than anyone expected. In their search for explanations in the many post-mortems of the crisis, it has meant a blame has been spread for far and wide. Governments, regulators, central banks, and auditors have all been in their frame. The role of bank directors and management and their widely publicized failures have been extensively pickled over and examined in reports, inquiries, and commentaries. The nickel effects of the scrutiny have been to make the governance of companies in general an issue of intense public debates, and has significantly increased the pressures on and the responsibilities of directors at the smallest and most political level. Their time involved in fulfilling the demands of the board directorship has increased significantly, calling into question the effectiveness of the classical model of corporate governance by part-time, independent, non-executive directors, where once a board schedule may have consist between 8 and 10 meetings a year. In many companies, the number of events requiring board inputs and decisions has dramatically risen. Furthermore, the amount of reading and preparation required for each meeting is increasing. Engineers can become overloaded, and this can mean their time for constructive debates must necessarily be restricted in favor of getting through their business. Often, board business is devoted to committees in order to cope with their workload, which may be more efficient, but can mean that the board as a whole is less involved in fully addressing some of the most important issues. It is not uncommon for the audits a committee meeting to last longer than the main board meeting itself. Process may take the people of discussion and be at the expense of real collaboration, and so that the processes are difficult rather than difficult. A radical solution, which may work for some very large companies whose businesses are extensive and complex, is their professional board, whose members will work up to 3 or 4 days a week, supported by their own dedicated staff and advisors. There are obvious risks to this end. It would be important to establish clear guidelines for such a board to ensure that it did not step on the toes of management by becoming too engaged in the day-to-day running of their company. Problems of recruitment, remuneration, and independence could also arise, and this structure would not be appropriate for all companies. However, more professional and better informed boards would have been particularly appropriate for banks where the executives and are access to information that the part-time non-executive directors lacked, leaving the later unable to comprehend and anticipate the 2008 crash. One of the main criticisms of boards and their directors is that they do not focus sufficiently on long-term matters. Here, strategy is sustainability and governance, but instead concentrates too much on short-term financial metrics, regulatory requirements, and the structure of the market encourage this behavior. The training of quarterly reporting that can distort board decision making. Directors have to make their numbers every 4 months to make the insatiable updates of their markets for more data, and this serves to encourage their trade methodology as a certain kind of investor who moves in and out of stock with us, engaging in constructive dialogue with the company about strategy or performance, and is simply seeking a short-term financial gain. This effect has been made worse by the changing profile of investors due to the globalization of capital and the increasing use of automated trading systems. Corporate culture adapts and management terms are largely incentivized to meet financial goals. Compensate for chief executives have become a combat zone where pitched battles between investors, management, and board members are fought often behind closed doors, but increasingly frequently in the foreground of peer price attention. Many would argue that this is in the interest of transparency and good governance, as shareholders use their muscle in the area of play. Their pressure boards to remove underperforming chief executives. Their power to vote down executive remuneration policy increased when building involves came to force. The chair of the remuneration committee can be exposed in the lonely role as Alison Carter with chair of Barclays Bank's remuneration committee found when she had to resign, having been roundly criticized for trying to defend the enormous balance to be paid to their chief executive. The irony being that she was widely understood to have spoken out against the privacy of the committee. The financial grist stimulated debates about the role and the purpose of the company, and the highlighted awareness of corporate ethics. The trust in the cooperation had been eroded, and academics such as Michael Sandin in his thoughtful and best-selling book "What Money Can Buy" are questioning the immortality of capitalism and the market economy in both of companies in all sectors will need to widen their perspective to encompass these issues, and this may involve regiments of cooperative goals, we live in challenging times.